But let's just think about very simple. We'll talk about resources a lot, and we know resources, energy, water, and materials. Here's a list of examples of more resources that we have. And I'll try to make it a bit of an interactive game. I'm just trying this out. I don't know your name, but how about the first letter of your name on the alphabet? So if your name is Claire, your first letter will be a C. So just take the first letter of your name and take this resources on here. If you think you're smart, you can take your family name as well. Or if you think you're very smart, you can take 3 resources to play this game very quickly. So you got your resource. Just think about it a little bit. What does this resource mean? Without getting that? Yeah. Okay. Now very simple. If we are over the line of renewable resources, biological resources or materials, and technical materials, where would you put your resource on? Should it be on the far left, on the far right, or somewhere in the middle?
Does somebody want to actually explain which one they took?
That's very good. If you like to interact,
please pick one.
Mushrooms, so biological materials.
Yes, good, very clear. And the biological materials, would you put it to fast renewable or slow renewable, this mushroom?
Fast renewable.
Yeah, mushrooms are awesome. It's one of the fastest growing things on the planet. So it's very renewable, or fast renewable, and there's certain benefits to that, as you'll come to. So if you look at the resources, how renewable they are, mushrooms, mushroom grows, well, overnight, basically, right? So in a week, you can have a big mushroom population. Whereas a tree, I don't know, what time does it take for a tree to regrow or to grow? Did anybody took a tree as resource?
40 to 50 years.
40 to 50 years. Yeah, hardwood takes definitely 50 years to grow. So if you're using hardwood in a building, just know the tree has been there at least 50 years. And then you cut it down. Pine woods could take just 15 years. So there's even a big range in trees. Yeah, so all the resources have a renewable speed, and some of them are never. Does anybody has an example of resources that never regrow?
What about certain bacteria?
Well, bacteria regrow. So they're biological materials and they grow back, but technical materials that don't regrow are metals, and the rare earth metals, which are in very small amounts in our planet. And yeah, they happen to be in your iPhone. They happen to be in your laptop. They even happen to be in solar panels. So there are tons of rare earth materials. And in the pace we're using them currently, we will run out of them pretty soon. We'll have a slide on that later. So one resource I want to add in this scheme is also people. It's the most awesome, flexible resource. I can't say they're renewable because there's ethical issues to that if I say that. But labor could be seen maybe as a renewable resource, but there's a price to it, of course. Here you see some examples of resources and the renewability speeds. And yeah, oil and gas are renewable resources, but it takes millennia to regrow. And the pace we're using them is way faster than they can regrow, of course. And the rare earth minerals, as I said, they don't regrow at all. So every resource you're using has a regeneration or regrowth speed, and you have to take that in account. And that's considering in the environmental impact it has. So the most renewable resources, labor I mentioned, microbes, mushrooms, maybe even on this list here, the sun, the wind, and water. They're awesome resources, especially because they also can generate energy for us. Another renewable resource is greenhouse gases, but we currently have too many of them, as you understand. Greenhouse gas, like carbon dioxide, is actually a gas which is food for trees. So we have enough resource for the trees to grow, for that element at least. Trees, they regrow, they take time. and you can make energy from them through biomass, but it takes time and other resources even to regrow biomass. So it's not a fully green energy resource. You should realize that. And then of course oil and gas and especially coal, they're the non-renewable because they renew so slow, and they emit a lot of greenhouse gases, which we have enough of them already, right? So on energy sources, you can imagine you would better want to be on the renewable things, and that actually counts for most material uses. So biological materials are very interesting because they can regrow pretty fast. So usually that's much more sustainable. And we had the mushrooms as example. Well, what do you do with mushrooms? You could eat them for nutritional benefits, I meant, and they're actually full of protein. They are a great meat replacement. And you understand that meat, chicken, fish, or cow, that's a resource that grows much faster and requires much more cost to grow than just time. So you can imagine as a sustainability aspect, mushrooms or insects as a nutrition source are actually very healthy for you and for the planet. So we're now on food. I mentioned everything takes time to regrow, but to grow food, you need more than just time, right? Does anybody want to shoot some answers? What else is needed to grow food besides time?
One of the things with food, Bart, is that you destroy the raw materials.
And with raw materials, what are they? What do you mean with that?
No, the thing is actually if you want to bake a cake, you need wheat. So that wheat actually, if you bake the cake, after that actually it's depleted. So you need more of it.
Yes. So you need to regrow it.
You need to regrow it. Yeah.
Definitely true. So that takes time to grow something. We need water to it, right? What else do we need to grow things? Here are the answers. We need space to grow things, and sorry to say, we're running out of space. We need nutrients, nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. There are limited resources in our planet, and yeah, odds are big that we're running out of them. We need labor. We need sunlight. These are all resources and quite renewable, but we need a lot of them. Oil just for the machines to work with it and transport. And yeah, plants are the good ones because they take up carbon dioxide. Now, by growing more plants for food, we're not really absorbing a lot of carbon because the moment you eat it, it will get out of you as gas again. I'm not going in details there, right? So this is a very interesting piece of mathematics, in this way also assessing. You can calculate the impact of your food on those dimensions. Let's forget about carbon, that is insignificant, but how much water do we need for something to grow? Oil, space, nutrients, labor, sunlight, and time. And everything you're going to eat, you can think about what kind of impact has it on these dimensions. I'm sure you heard of it, which food is sustainable, which is not. But if you talk about sustainable, are we only talking about carbon footprint? Or are we talking about water footprint or all those things together, right? So a lot of research and a lot of, especially in popular magazines and on the internet, people talk about, apples are not sustainable because they consume a lot of water. Well, consume a lot of water compared to what? And okay, apples is the worst example probably, but nuts, the cashew nuts, they consume indeed a lot of water. And cashew nuts and almond nuts, a lot of them are growing in California, and it's a very dry region. So you better be careful using a lot of water as resource because locally there's a scarcity on that. So it's good to realize it's not just carbon footprint, but water footprint is a significant, interesting element as well. And if you get your nuts from California, your carbon footprint from oil is also significant because maybe they're being flown in or at least by a ship. But yeah, transport has an impact on the environment as well. You see how it goes? Well, I didn't do the full calculations, but here are some examples of foods and their impacts on each of those resources, and you can calculate it all, right? And we had the mushrooms already. It's probably the most healthy and sustainable thing you can ever eat. That and together with insects, But a lot of vegans don't think insects are real vegan. I'm not a vegan, and I eat very little amounts of meat out of sustainability considerations. But insects I would love to eat because they're very healthy as a protein resource, and their environmental impact is insignificant, basically. What's the most sustainable thing you can eat? According to my list here, onions. Okay, well, you can cook a lot of things with onions. So yes, apples are also very sustainable. Rice is, so 5.8 kilogram of onions equals similar impact on carbon compared to 1.3 kilogram of rice. So onions are in that way fourfold, what is it? 3.5, 4-fold more sustainable that way. What is less sustainable? Well, if you're going down the list, we see milk, all dairy, eggs, salmon, chicken, and then we're getting to the bad boys, pork, lamb, and beef. Those last three are definitely the most unsustainable things you can eat, not just for the carbon footprint. One piece of steak, if I recall correct, it's about 3,000 liters of water it takes. The amount of nutrients it uses is massive, and the phosphates and nitrates that get in the air and run off in the water and destroying actually river systems and even ocean systems by eutrophication is massive. The space a cow needs, the cow itself is not massive, but the space the cow needs on its land to eat and the soybeans that are brought in to eat for the cow is a massive footprint on space. Yeah, I guess is it written here somewhere, 3 to 5 years to grow a cow. Factory cows grow faster, so that way they may be more sustainable than biological cows. That's mind-boggling, and this running up for discussion, right? But there's ways to say factory cows may be more sustainable than biological cows, because biological cows, they need more space and more time to be. Yeah, deforestation and species extinction. Cows are probably the biggest contributor to that. Because, well, right now we're talking about the Amazon forest being cut down, mostly for cows. One more thing, it's probably not even that healthy for you. The things that have a small environmental impact here are actually more healthy for you. Let's go to the non-renewable resources. So we know that the biological materials, they regrow, and non-renewable resources in a circular economy, we should start to recycle, or better recycle than we do currently, or even better, a smaller circle, just to reuse it or even reduce in its use. There's a lot of those resources here. You can see the examples. Maybe it's one of the ones you took for yourself. They need some smart thinking how we can keep them in the loop. Because if we take them from a mine or from an oil place, put them in a product and then dump them into nature, they'll probably harm nature as well. An obvious example is plastics. Plastics comes from oil, which is a resource that's depleting. But the plastic itself is a waste that doesn't really biodegrade and stays around in our natural environment if it leaks out in it. And yeah, that's the reason why we're getting so much plastic in the ocean and everywhere. And eventually it will end up back in your plate, of course. All right, here are some examples of renewable resources, non-renewable resources that may be depleting in your lifetime. I don't know how old you're planning to get, but let's say, where are we in the year 2090, 2100? Then we're looking at potential depletion of all these resources listed here. So the first four are resources we need for energy: oil, coal, gas, even uranium. They could run out in our lifetime. The earliest it could happen is just after 2040. That's in 20 years from now. If the depletion at current production growth rate, so at current production growth rate, it will deplete at this time, and maybe it could continue longer if the production remains static from the amount of usage we had in 2010. But look at that. If you're planning to be as old to be alive at 2090, you're running out of those resources at current business or with the current growth rate or even stable production as it is now. Those are energy resources. Well, good thing we have renewables, have we? Indium is a vital resource for current generation of solar panels. We may be running out of it already at 2030. That's in 10 years from now. It's a resource which is quite scarce. More fun fact, well, Australia has some of these resources, but some of the resources are very locally available on the planet. So some countries will have access to those rare earth minerals, and some other countries will not have access to those rare earth minerals, which are high in demand and essential for renewable energies, or for computers, which are also essential for us, right? So there's a huge tension on non-renewable earth resources, and it's an issue we're facing in your generation that you're alive. I'm not much older, so our generation, I'd like to say. Then there are other materials, metals, zinc, silver, gold, copper, also vital for computers and electronics, and their resource scarcity is imminent. It's there. And then a very interesting one, phosphorus. It's vital for food production. We could run out of it at 2060. Food production. I mean, yes, it's hard to do without your iPhone, but we could run out of non-renewable resources the way we're using them currently for food. So this is how serious the issue is. Yes, we've been talking about climate change. That's a massive issue, and it cannot be underestimated. But the problem is even bigger how we're dealing with our current resource use. So the waste we're making, which is carbon dioxide, causes climate change, but also the waste we're making is depleting our current use of resources. The planet is basically, or the economy is basically an input-output system, and we're putting too much in it, which is going to deplete, and we're putting too much out of it, it's causing pollutions. So that's the metaphor of we have a circular economy, where we keep, instead of an input-output system, keep everything in the economy and keep it looping and looping again, versus the linear economy, where we're taking things from nature, we're making something of it, we're using it, then we're wasting it and dumping it into nature.